we're going to get started, obviously, on the Big Booty Cheeks bill. I covered it extensively yesterday with David Dane. As you guys know, there was a vote-a-rama that took place yesterday where, legislators were going up and down, figuring out whatever kind of like additional things that they wanted to add into the bill. And they did that, and they officially passed it this morning. Obviously, this is devastating, as I warned yesterday. It is a completely psychotic wealth distribution bill. It is one of the worst bills. It is one of the most fascist bills. It is terrifying, and it's most likely going to pass in the House of Representatives too at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it is what it is. America winning. We're winning. Oh, we're winning so hard. I can't wait. 17 million people kicked out of health insurance as a consequence of the underfunding of Medicaid. 17 million Americans. And we don't even know the full extent of the bill yet, because they basically were adding stuff. They were writing the bill up until the last moment where they voted on it. So we don't even know the full extent of it yet. But as we parse through, there are obviously a lot of the high level things that we've discussed. Medicaid cuts, work requirements for SNAP and Medicaid in general, but then also simultaneously a ton of funding for the American military, but for ICE in particular. That's a really terrifying amount of money. Why do they want to overfund ICE like this? Well, because ICE's major hurdle at this point, in order to do these like concentration camps, in order to operate as the Gestapo secret police force that Trump wants it to be, they don't have enough funding. They don't have enough people to work at ICE. Okay. Rural hospitals are gone. Underserved neighborhoods where the hospitals require Medicaid expenditures, done. Okay. At a time when rural hospitals are already in a place of crisis. Okay. It is over. It is super over. America is done. America is extra done. America was already done. It's super done now. Okay. Oh my Lord. Okay, let's see how the media is covering it though.
An important moment, a really important moment for.
What is their end goal here? What do you mean? Fascism, 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 shock doctrine, fascism. Okay. Privatize everything. Privatize everything. Kill the working poor. Make sure that their lives are horrible. And when they speak out, take away their citizenship. It's not happening yet. And I've been warning about this, but this is the final stage. This is how it has always worked throughout history. Okay. That is where we're at right now. We are doing domestic shock doctrine. We have been doing it since 9/11, but this is kicking it into high gear, basically hitting the last level. Okay. Yeah, Alligator Alcatraz is another like quirky fascist side of this. All right, let's continue.
President Trump's legislative agenda. So much of what he does with the stroke of a pen and hopes that it gets through the courts. This is different. This is really it when it comes to what he wants Congress to do. Actually, just hang on one second. Let's listen into the Senate. Lauren.
Would you have expected us to get here as quickly as we did? Feels nuts. Yes. Trump is greatly accelerating America's fascist demise. But yeah, I mean, it's what, 6 months at this point? We're nearing 6 months. Not even 6 months yet. It was like 5 months and change. And here we are. We bombed Iran. The genocide of the Palestinians are continuing. We are accelerating weapons transfers to Israel. Hasan has been calling this for several years, and every lib has been saying he's been exaggerating. I know. And we're here. Where are the liberals? We got concentration camps with alligators on them. The lie that undocumented migrants are actually a national security issue has basically taken root, so much so that people don't even question it at this point, and that lie needs a solution.
I'm going to go back to you. We see on the screen there 50-50. This is what you suspected. Looking at this, at the chair there,
The reason we bombed Iran is to distract people from the Genius Act as they passed while all this was going on. No, dude. No, that's not the reason. Okay? The reason why we bombed Iran is so we take attention away is an insane way to approach this. No, we bombed Iran because Israel wanted us to bomb Iran, okay? That's why we bombed Iran. It's not a distraction. Everything's a distraction. Bombing Iran is like, depending on how Iran responds, is perhaps more consequential than even this bill in the short term, okay? That's crazy. I feel like we're going to spend the rest of our lives trying to undo everything in this bill alone. Stuff like Medicare for All is taking a backseat to just defending the minimum we already had. Our imaginations shrink. Yes, because when Republicans come to power, they do everything they can with these kinds of budget reconciliation bills to undermine any kind of amenities that the working poor got in the past 100 years or so. And they do it successfully every single time they're in power. And then the Democrats don't even claw back any of those gains. Like they don't even restore the normal order once they are in power. This is what is also known as the ratchet effect. This is where we're at.
Yeah, it looks like it is the vice president. So we do expect a tie-breaking vote momentarily.
Is Zoran Diskurs a distriction? No.
Yeah, our team who is in the chamber, Dana, they are giving us some live updates. And I just want to preface this with the fact that until it's gavelled, nothing is final. You can hear the vice president here. What we are learning from inside the chamber is that Senator Rand Paul has voted no.
Where would you go live that's better? And they aren't concentration camps. They're not going to pull people's eyes out or gas them or kill them. They're just holding them until they can go back to their country where they came from. I hope you understand something here. You're never going to understand this reality because you probably are completely oblivious to history. This is exactly what the average German nationalist said about the Jews. They were like, listen, these guys represent a national security threat. It's perfectly valid to take away their citizenship, and it's perfectly valid to put them in a concentration camp as we move them away. Okay? As we move them away. We're not going to claw their eyes out. I don't know why that's we're not going to kill them. This is how the Holocaust literally happened. Okay? I'm sick and tired of explaining it. What is the point? What is the point of learning about history if you are just not going to learn about history at all or take away any lessons from it whatsoever or ever use it as a decent analogy to what's going on currently? What the hell is happening here? Okay? Dachau was one of the first concentration camps built by Nazi Germany. It's the longest running one, opening on the 22nd of March, 1933. The camp was initially intended to intern Hitler's political opponents, which consisted of communists, social democrats, and other dissidents. It is located on the grounds of an abandoned munitions factory northeast of the medieval town of Dachau. After its opening by Heinrich Himmler, its purpose was enlarged to include forced labor and eventually the imprisonment of Jews, Romani, Germans, and Austrians that the Nazi Party regarded as criminals, and finally, foreign nationals from countries that Germany occupied or invaded. The Dachau camp system grew to include nearly 100 subcamps, which were mostly work camps. Arbeitskommandos were located throughout southern Germany and Austria. Prisoners lived in constant fear of the brutal treatment of terror detention, including standing cells, floggings, the so-called tree or pole hanging, and standing at attention for extremely long periods. There were 32,000 documented deaths at the camp and thousands that are undocumented. Approximately 10,000 to 30,000 prisoners were sick at the time of liberation. In its inception, all of these concentration camps were there to concentrate political dissidents, communists, socialists, and eventually, past the point of the Nuremberg race laws, they were there to concentrate people whose citizenship was being removed, okay? Whose citizenship was being called into question, saying Jews do not have loyalty to Germany. They are a national security threat. Do you understand? And their citizenship was being removed. Do you understand? They became nationless. They became stateless. Dachau served as a prototype and a model for other German concentration camps that followed. Almost every community in Germany had members taken away to these camps. Newspaper continually reported the removal of the enemies of the Reich to the concentration camps. As early as 1935, a jingle went around, Lieber Herrgott, mach mich stumm, das ist nicht nach Dachau komm. Dear Lord God, make me dumb silent that I may not go, that I may not to Dachau come. The camp's layout and building plans were developed by Commandant Theodor Ike and were applied to all later camps. Okay. The entrance of the gate famously had Arbeit macht frei, work makes one free. That's or work shall set you free. That was the phrase outside of the concentration camp. Also, the meaning of concentration camps has been lost on people. Concentration camps were more like brutal prison labor camps, while death camps like Auschwitz and Birkenau were places of mass slaughter. People died en masse in the concentration camps, but their sole purpose wasn't to kill people. Yes, the initial extermination measures were presented as an act of mercy to spare the constraint from the inhuman conditions of the camps. When ICE victims in this country die in captivity from heat exhaustion or overwork or starvation, it is the beginning of their manufacturing of consent for mass murder. I have straight up said that this will be what will happen. The Jews who lived in Germany were rounded up because they were Jewish, not because they came to Germany illegally. Brother, the difference between someone who has lived on U.S. soil for 5-10 years without getting the proper authorization, while simultaneously having a work clearance, not having the proper documentation to be a full-blown citizen, is just paperwork. Okay? That's what the government decides is someone who is illegal versus someone who is legal. Okay? Like, for example, your disgusting inbred parents that came here multiple generations ago by ship were afforded a benefit that these newcomers have not been afforded. Okay? So when your dumbass crawled out of your ugly ass mother's pussy on U.S. soil to become an American citizen at the moment of birth, and your mother did the same, and your father did the same, okay, even though they were directly related to one another, brother and sister, I suspect, which is precisely the reason why your brain capacity is the way it is, right? They got this benefit. They got the proper authorization at some point in time. Do you understand? We are not doing that to the newcomers, even though they have a de facto work authorization to work here. God, you're condescending. If you consider this to be condescension, I don't know what to tell you, because I tried to explain this politely, and he turned around and gave me this short ass, stupid ass answer. Who decides who is legal and who is illegal? Okay? During chattel slavery, black people could not be free. Okay? Freeing a black person was considered illegal. Slavery, on the other hand, was very much legal. Okay? The government decides who is illegal and legal. Do you understand? So, just like in Nazi Germany, the government decide Jews illegal, okay? No longer citizens of Germany. And the reason why they justified this was because of a period of dehumanization, lies, the economic volatility that Germany was experiencing was directly reoriented back to Jews, okay? Kind of like the economic volatility that Americans are currently experiencing is directly reoriented back to undocumented migrants. You feel me? You know how the Trump administration says unjustifiably that migrants are the reason why there's so much crime, there's so much uncertainty that you can't pay for your rent or whatever? Not to mention these dumb fucks who want birthright to end now. How will babies be given or even determine if they're citizens? Right now, it's with the social security number, but who will decide this? The social security department is gutted. I know, it's full-blown chaos. And it's actually really interesting because it's so chaotic that it undermines the American government. It undermines stability. It ruins everything. And I am shocked. I'm constantly in awe of how little these guys seemingly care about keeping things going, where it's just a hope and a dream that I guess is going to keep things going. Also, the Trump administration has obviously talked about denaturalizing American citizens as well. There's also a new list that is coming down the wire as well, that will have a list of all documented American citizens. Thank God we also gave hundreds of millions of dollars to Palantir so that we can do mass surveillance on the list of American citizens, once we decide who is a political dissident and who is not a political dissident, we can also denaturalize those people, at which point we will have moved fully into the post-Nuremberg laws style Nazi Germany governance, and chatters will probably still be yelling at me when I say, this is exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. They'll go, dude, 6 million Jews haven't been slaughtered yet. It's like, yeah, yet, okay? The insane amount of money that is going to funding ICE in this bill is going to funding ICE in this bill because the Trump administration, as I have said over and over again, uses Customs and Border Patrol and ICE as his secret loyalist police, secret police service, okay? They do warrantless search and seizure. They do not abide by constitutional protections. They do not care about the constitutional protections afforded to all citizens and non-citizens alike. Okay? I need people to understand there is a reason why they are funding ICE, because the number one problem with ICE doing mass deportations and setting up concentration camps is money. Okay? They don't have enough money to hire enough people. Okay? Now they have money, and then they will hire people. They will set up new facilities, private prisons, by the way, most likely. Holy shit, your fans are absolutely brain dead. What are you talking about, Lamau? One question, and everyone is experiencing heartbreak. Get a hobby, says Parishu. One of the funniest parts about this is the people that demonstrate blind loyalty to this administration. Why are you demonstrating blind loyalty to this administration at a time when they are literally you, okay? You are not a super wealthy multimillionaire, okay? You're not. You are most likely an average American worker. Öyle mi? That's cute. Oh, he's Turkish. Never mind. Okay, well, you know, your opinion is irrelevant. Enjoy the hyperinflation. Okay? Suck my dick. Literally, like, this is, in America, we are Turkifying at an alarming rate, and this Turkish moron is in the chat being like, nah, dude, it's awesome. Are you enjoying what's going on in Turkey?
We know that Senator
Lauren,
Susan
hang on.
Collins.
Let's listen to the Vice
Senate
President
will
one
suspend
second.
for a prayer by the Senate.
You know his ass is not in Turkey, but in Germany, most likely. That chatter is also correct. There's very little likelihood that that dude is in Turkey, because Turks in the chat already know exactly what America's going through, because they went through it in Turkey and they're still going through it in Turkey. It's always the dumb German Turks who are like pro Erdogan, okay? Erdogan dick riders who are like, oh, dude, shut up. You're overreacting. I don't know what has happened to the German Turks. Not all German Turks, obviously, but some of the German Turks are such hogs. It is incredibly annoying. Also, yeah, when the AfD kicks into power, you will enjoy that remigration, and then you will also get a taste of that Erdogan regime that you voted for consistently. Ananızı sikecek Almanlar. Gönderecekler sizi AfD. Geldiği zaman gönderecekler seni tekrar Türkiye'ye. O zaman göreceksin o oy verdiğin Erdoğan'ın neler yaptığını. Bir yandan overnight yani. Ondan sonra görürsün. Orada kazandığın, Almanya'da kazandığın euro ile gidip Bodrum'da para alabiliyorsun. Nasıl olsa çok güzel. Exchange rate çok iyi senin için şu anda. Bakalım bir Türk lirasıyla çalışmaya başladığın zaman Türkiye'de nasıl hoşuna gidecek mi gitmeyecek mi Erdoğan? Amcık ağızlılar.
Chaplain.
Oh, never mind. Sorry, Lauren.
That's okay.
The prayer is important. It is part of the daily business of the Senate. But as we monitor that, please continue what you were telling us about the news.
Yeah, we know now that Senator Rand Paul voted no on this piece of legislation. Senator Tom Tillis voted no on this piece of legislation. Senator Susan Collins voted no on this piece of legislation. But our colleague Sarah Ferris, who was in the chamber, said that Senator Lisa Murkowski gave a quiet but affirmative vote for this legislation. Obviously, that is a significant development given the lengths that leadership went to try to win over her support. She had several concerns in this bill, from Medicaid to food stamps cuts in her state, and she was really successful in winning some major things for the state of Alaska, including the fact that a key provision that would have shifted some of the burden of covering the cost of the supplemental nutrition
How are 5150 votes allowed? Because it's a budget reconciliation. I think all of it should be 5150 for the record. Like, I think that technically it would all be 5150 as a minimum necessary vote if it wasn't for the filibuster. Like, a regular majority would be fine to pass most bills if it wasn't for the filibuster. And the filibuster can be voted on to avoid the filibuster. That's why you need a supermajority. That's why you need more than 50 votes. This was a budget reconciliation, so there is no filibuster regardless. This is passing as a budget reconciliation, which is a basic majority bill.
Assistance program known as food stamps back in her state. She was carved out. Alaska was carved out, as was Hawaii. That just shows you how far leadership was working to try to win up and shore up her vote.
And when you say carved out, just to be clear, it means that the cuts that are coming to most states will not come to the state of Alaska and Hawaii as well.
Exactly. Non-contiguous states in the United States will not be subject to that change. We'll see how that goes over among House conservatives once this gets back over to their chamber, of course.
Like, the only hope and a dream we have is the Tea Party being insane and just being such rugged libertarians that they are just like, I don't care. We're not doing any deficit. I'm not voting for it. Okay? Once again, our hope and a dream is on some of the most psychotic in the country, some of the most psychotic representatives in the country. I am praying to my Lord Jesus Christ, Jesus H. Christ, our Lord and Savior, and also, perhaps more importantly, Hayek, Milton Friedman, Ayn Rand, and the Koch brother that is still alive, and the one that's dead, that the Tea Party pulls through and just nukes this out of orbit once again and causes more instability. That is the only thing I am praying to the Rand Corporation. Please, Donald Trump, save me. Okay? I'm telling you, this is the only thing that will maybe potentially stop this from pushing in the House of Representatives is the rabid far-right Tea Party caucus, the Freedom Caucus, as they're known, which is unlikely. I'm still going to pray to all of the gods that they believe, the gods of capitalism, the gods of anarcho-capitalism. Please, please, for the love of Christ and all things holy, whatever the you believe in, okay? Please nuke this. It won't happen. They went along with it last tax bill. I know, but I shouldn't stop dreaming, and you shouldn't either. Think about the deficit, guys. Think about the expenditures. It's so much. It's so much. It doesn't kill the working poor hard enough. Please think about that, because that's the only thing they care about. They love the tax cuts. They hate that there's any expenditures in it. There's so many expenditures. Please, 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 please. I beg of you. Tea Party caucus, please save us. Freedom Caucus, please save us. Why would Murkowski go along with this? What do you mean? Like, these guys all cut side deals for their own state so they can like avoid half the spending cuts in their own states. So then they go along with it. It's that easy. Also, every Republican at the end of the day will vote for stuff like this. This is the whole purpose. The entire purpose of the Republican Party. People talk about the ideological disagreements within the right wing, okay? Within the right flank of American politics. But there's one unifying principle, and that is always tax cuts and deregulation, but especially tax cuts. This is a tax cut bill, first and foremost. Sam Cedar was saying they were promised the Freedom Caucus a budget cutting bill in 2026.
Senator Paul said that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
It's true, by the way. That is literally what happened.
That's what Senator Paul said.
Which is so crazy, because like Rand Paul's disagreement with this bill is not my disagreement with this bill. Rand Paul's disagreement with this bill is that there's expenditures in it and it increases the deficit. Okay? So that's what he's mad about. And even though he's mad about that, just like the quote unquote Tea Party movement backed Freedom Caucus is supposed to be quote unquote mad about this, because that's what they're mad about. They're mad that like it increases the deficit. I'm a deficit hawk. How dare you? Okay. Rand Paul is correct when he says you cut a side deal where you eliminated some of the cuts from Alaska, and then you over the rest of the country, which is true. We've got the.
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an off of the state of Alaska, and I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard to take care of a state that has more unique situations, more unique people, and it's just different. And so
Yeah, you wouldn't understand it. It's Alaskan business. See yourself out. Do you think her knees hurt from all the shoe polishing under Trump's table? I mean, this is expected.
when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests, but I...
Do I like this bill? No. Will I? Did I inevitably concede? Yes. It's nasty business, man. It is nasty, nasty business.
I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are...
I'm going to repeat this one more time, okay? If you are a Trump supporter from a rural area, you will no longer have a hospital, okay? You probably already have a hard time going to whatever hospital that exists in your vicinity, but you're double now because now no more hospitals. If there was no hospitals in a 50-mile region, now there's no hospitals in a 100-mile region. And the ones that remain will unironically be swapped at all times. Okay? It's so cooked. Cutting Medicaid is profoundly stupid. American healthcare already is one of the worst by every metric in comparison to comparable OECD states. American healthcare is unironically worse than much poorer countries that have nationalized systems. And it is going to get even worse now because these rural hospitals where Trump supporters live, in the areas that Trump supporters live, rely heavily on Medicaid. That is the only way that people can pay for it. Okay? Medicaid is the only way that people can pay for healthcare because these are places that are impoverished. Okay? Very poor people live in these places. So when there's no funding vehicle for these hospitals, when that expenditure is cut, they will no longer be, they won't be operating. They will not be able to operate. It's that simple. Why are Republicans killing their supporters? They don't care. They don't care because Republicans serve capital openly. Okay? What do you mean? They directly assassinated a major chunk of their base of support with boomers. The boomer vote has shifted to the Democratic side. If you noticed in the last couple of elections, like it changed a little bit. And I think the last election, the gains made by boomers wasn't necessarily made on the virtue of like the Democratic Party making a better argument than the Republicans did for the boomers. Is because all the right-wing boomers died. They died. They killed them. But it didn't matter because there's a unlimited amount of stupid people in this country that'll still vote for the Republican Party.
Are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that. I don't like.
When Mitch McConnell was told about the calls coming in telling him not to cut Medicaid, his response was, they'll get over it. I cannot think. I can't think of another instance where they're just so transparent about how little they care about the working poor. And a part of the reason why there is no real momentum behind the Democrats is because the Democrats don't actually convincingly tell a story that they're on the side of the working class. And this is precisely the reason why when the election cycle comes around, the Republican demons get to lie actively to their base of support and even pick up low propensity voters aggressively, because the Democrats are also servile to corporate interests. Sure, Democrats won't pass a package like this. Never. Okay? They would never do that. 100%. This is what I mean when I say, of course, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are different. Okay? Especially when it comes to domestic policies. Okay? But if the Democrats' alternative vision for America is basically a watered down version of this, then obviously people are going to go for the full thing. They're going to go for the full strength soda as opposed to the diet soda. This is why I'm so critical of the Dems, okay? This is why I get so mad about the Democratic Party, because they are not a true opposition party. Because I want them to win so that this doesn't happen.
The fact that we moved through an artificial deadline, an artificial timeline to produce something to meet a deadline rather than to actually try to produce the best bill for the country. But when I saw
Yeah, 60% of nursing homes' income comes from Medicaid, by the way. They are melting the poor, the working poor, and the old. Okay, once again, they do not care. And this isn't like the dog catches the car moment, because it clearly doesn't matter. It clearly doesn't matter, because if there is no true opposition to this, if there isn't like a united front and a real difference, if there is no one on the other side, if there aren't like 1,000 different Zoran Mamdanis that bloom as a consequence of this devastation, and the Democrats are still operating on the Hakeem Jeffries notion of politics, the Chuck Schumer notion of politics, then Americans are just going to get more and more angry. And in that volatility, as we have seen in the past couple of decades, they become incredibly easy to manipulate. They become more and more angry at like random people. They become scared of their own shadows. Do you not understand? This is what I've been screaming about. This is precisely the reason why simply sitting around and expecting the Americans to come to terms with like this economic devastation is idiotic. It's dangerous. What is Chuck Schumer doing in opposition? News, I just got the name struck off this bill with a move on the floor of the Senate. It's no longer named One Big Beautiful Bill. The bill is big, ugly betrayal of the American people by the Republicans, and the American people will remember.
Budget Act of. I raise a point of order against page 1, lines 3 to 5 of the pending amendment, which violates Section 313B1A of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974.
The point of order is sustained. The text will be stricken.
He's a bad bitch.
I raise a point of order against page 1, lines 3 to 5 of the pending amendment, which violates Section 313B1A of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974.
God damn, he's so sick. He's so sick, dude. That's my goat right there. Yo, he's the man, bro. Y'all don't understand swag when you see it, dude. Swag is hitting you directly in the face right now, and many of you are not recognizing my goat. My goat. That just happened. That's how I'm gonna be. I've realized that my future career prospects lie with being a Democratic Party mouthpiece. So going forward, this is the type of shit you can expect from me. That just happened. Chuck Schumer is showing once again real swag. Everybody say thank you, Chuck Schumer. I'm gonna be a Dem faillennial. Precisely. Instead of screaming about how horrible this bill is, as they should be, they're punching left and shit on Zoran and actively trying to get Trump, a Trump puppet reelected, or get a cop rapist in office. Actual controlled opposition. These be on the air 24/7, telling every single person watching how bad this will be. Explain what just happened with the bill. Chuck Schumer just changed the name of the bill. That's it. It's meaningless. I'm showing that as a way to explain to you that it's stupid. Once again, 50% of individuals over the age of 75 and 2/3 of those over 85 are on Medicaid. 60% of all nursing home residents receive care funded by Medicaid. long-term nursing home care is funded by Medicaid, okay? These are people who have Medicare, but also in order to get the proper funding for long-term nursing home care, they get Medicaid. What do we do with the old people? Do we just kill them? Do we just melt them? What are they going to do? Also, in incredibly expected news, the Senate Republicans bought Hawley off by including RECA, which he's been trying to get attached to anything for 3 years. While it's true that the RECA will benefit Missourians, the Medicaid cuts will harm them. What's Hawley's plan to reverse them? Who knows? RECA is a generational legislation for Missouri, and I will finally deliver justice for survivors in the St. Louis region. And when this reconciliation bill is signed into law, Missouri will also see new health care funding and big tax cuts for working families. I call on the House to quickly pass the legislation and send it to President Trump's desk. Josh Hawley, remember, Mr. Populist, Mr. Right Populism. Remember how much he talked about how we can't do a single dime. We can't have a single dime cut from Medicaid. We can't have any sort of Medicaid cuts. Dog, you are a senator of one of the poorest states in the goddamn nation. Do you know how much your state relies on these social safety nets for survival? Open President, thank you for the 100 gifted subs. Everyone fighting for their own state interests while selling out others will accelerate state succession. Ay, ay, ay. How close is the U.S. to becoming a real life Hunger Games? I don't know. I mean, this is once again more impactful than 100 9/11s. Okay, this is the Onion joke about Osama bin Laden just kicks back, Al Qaeda just kicks back and watches America collapse in and of itself. This is why I've also said, if you want to truly destroy the country, doing a 9/11 is not the most effective measure. Just fund the Republican Party, the number one terrorist entity on the planet. Number two is the Democrats, for sure. Okay. But number one is still the Republicans. If you want to destroy this country, just vote for the Republicans. That's it. If you want to destroy the planet, vote for the Republican Party. Number one terrorist of all time, okay? Number one at terrorism. Number one at melting the working class. Number one at doing giant redistribution policies for the tippy top of American society. It's cool, man. We'll get 1,000 new billionaires in the process, That'll be fine. Breaking. Marjorie Taylor Greene just announced on Steve Bannon's show that Trump's big bill doesn't have enough votes in the House. This is far from over. I can't imagine it passing. Oh, thank God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Please. I don't believe this, but please be real. Please be real. Please be the truth. Please, Freedom Caucus, save us. Freedom Caucus, save us. For those of you who don't know, Freedom Caucus has saved us in the past. When Barack Obama wanted to do COLA adjustments, cost of living adjustments, that would cut Social Security expenditures, okay? When Barack Obama was willing to do that as a bargain that nobody asked for, the people that tanked it were the Freedom Caucus, okay? The people that tanked it in the House of Representatives were the rabid, super far-right Freedom Caucus weirdos. Okay, so say thank you, Freedom Caucus. Thank you, Comrade Taylor Greene. They literally are like, it's not killing enough. It's not melting enough of the working poor. So we will not pass. We will not push for this. And I'll take it. What's their angle? They're insane. That's their angle. Their angle is that they are insane. That's it. Like, they're schizophrenic. That's their angle. One Trump call and they fold. Watch. I know. But I just want to believe. Bro, you sound like Jank right now. Wait, whoa. At no point did I say these people are they're moral or intellectually honest or anything like that. I'm simply telling you what they have done in the past when they felt like expenditures were too high due to their schizophrenic ideological investment in anarcho-capitalist principles. Okay? That is crazy. I didn't say they're actually rugged Marxists or something. I'm telling you what they've done in the past. I don't think that they're going to do it right now, but as a joke, I hope that they will. I'm going to keep advocating for them to do so. ICE has more money than the Marines in this bill, but it will allow them to fully wage war on internal enemies, secret police picking up people everywhere, citizen or not. Oh, for sure. That is the major goal. It is a massive funding vehicle for ICE, Trump's Gestapo, Trump's secret police. These guys also love that part of the bill.
We're taking Medicaid away from American citizens and maybe still paying for illegal aliens. Is the House going to rubber stamp this? Is it going to be like a 24-hour turnaround, ma'am?
I cannot imagine. No, I can't imagine they have the votes. There's no way that Johnson has the votes in the House for this. We're supposed to be back Wednesday morning to start voting at 9 a.m. I think that is not realistic. I just don't see how that's possible. So this is, I think it's far from over. It is really a dire situation. We're on a time clock that's been really set on us, so we have a lot of pressure. And then also given the fact that there's 435 members of Congress, and it's hard for us to get to an agreement on anything. So this whole thing is, I don't know what to call it. It's a show. And I'm sorry for saying that. I know we're not supposed to say that on the air, but that's truly what it is.
We're taking a Medicaid away from
nursing home conglomerates, not a strong enough lobbying force. I can't imagine they'll be happy about losing that income, especially with the boomers starting to get ripe. I don't know.
Okay, and Lauren, I just want to show our viewers as we wait to see the final gavel. As you said, we don't know for sure what happens until the final gavel, although this time I think we have a pretty good sense. I just want to show our viewers the big.
By the way, people are talking about why are people talking about BBB? It's Big Beautiful Bill. It's not the Better Business Bureau. Okay. Damn, BBB passed. One of the biggest overlooked things I haven't seen many people talk about in regards to grad plus loans being taken away and students pushing students without rich parents into predatory private loans if they can even get them. I'm pushing towards residency, and this admin is really fucking the country, exacerbating the physician shortage even with this even more. The BBB is the Big Beautiful Bill, is the name that Trump gave it, okay? Yes, I know Trump is going after Mamdani. We're going to talk about that as well. There's so much in this thing, dude.
Picture of what we're talking about here, the substance of this, because the horse trading and the politics are fascinating, but the substance is really ultimately what matters. We're talking about extending the 2017 tax cuts, overhaul eligibility for Medicaid and food stamps, no taxes on tips or overtime. That was a big campaign promise that President Trump was out there talking.
Chat, ICE is getting, with this bill, ICE is getting direct appropriations to the tune of $30 billion with a B, okay? $30 billion. On top of that, with the additional expenditures to all Customs and Border Patrol, okay, whether it be state expenditures, whether it be detention expenditures, or whether it be additional funding for immigration courts and immigration detention centers, the total number goes up to $175 billion, okay? With the new appropriations for Customs and Border Protection, CBP, immigration courts, detention expansion, and state-level border assistance, the bill and its immigration enforcement budget totals $175.155 billion with a B, okay? With a B. Please understand how psychotic this is. The budget will give, once again, $175 billion to immigration enforcement broadly. Is Israel getting any money from? Come on, dog. Of course, Israel. We have to talk about something for Israel. Come on, nice piece of steak. This puts CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, and American Immigration Enforcement, okay, at a higher budget than I think virtually every other country's military. This makes it the most expensive law enforcement apparatus on the planet. This makes it like this is more than the GDP of nation states. One must ask the question why this much funding is necessary. Because the real story here, China is around 250 billion. Okay, calm down. Like, yes, of course. China is also multiple times larger than the United States of America. It would make ICE the 8th largest military by expenditure on Earth, ahead of France, To put that number into context, Bernie's free college costs around $70 to $90 billion a year. Free college tuition. This is genocidal level funding. The reason why they're doing this, you have to understand, the reason why they're doing this is because they are gearing up for ethnic cleansing, okay, internally. That is the point. The major hurdle, as I have said time and time again, for ICE deportations, like mass deportations like the ones that we've seen so far, which at a very limited capacity, even though it's still harrowing, it's still awful, was the major hurdle against that was literally not the lack of ambition, but instead logistics. There isn't enough places to put enough concentration camps to put the people that are being grabbed and detained. And this will not stay. Just like I said, there is no world where they're like grabbing all undocumented migrants that are criminals or whatever, because there aren't that many criminal migrants in this country, right? Because the criminal migrants that do heinous crimes, they get prosecuted and they go to prison. Like the notion that, oh, if you're undocumented and you do a crime, you get away with it. Like that's bull. It's made up. Trump has lied about that over and over and over again. So I told you that they were going to go after regular migrant workers that have the proper authorization to work on U.S. soil right now, and they have been. They've been going after migrants that have been checking in with ICE, that ICE knows exactly where they live, ICE knows exactly where they work. They've been going after as many people as they possibly can because they want to make a show of force. But a big part of the issue here is simply the lack of funding. They don't have enough people to do mass apprehensions all around the country. They do not have enough facilities to place people into after doing mass apprehensions all across the country. And now this bill creates a funding vehicle to do that. Watch this space. It is one of the most important parts of the right-wing reactionary fascist agenda. Everything is funneled through immigration enforcement for them because it is the one area that the executive office has more authority over. So if you use immigration enforcement as the driving vehicle of your internal military, your secret police force, you can get away with a lot more unconstitutional shit while still simultaneously eroding what remains of constitutional protections to begin with. And eventually they are going to go after political dissidents as well. First, they're going to go after every single undocumented migrant that whose immigration status has been in limbo. Then they'll go after DACA. Then they will start denaturalizing people. First, if you've been naturalized as a citizen in the past 5 years, you're probably first to go, right? Then 10 years. Then eventually they will call into question any American citizen's citizenship status and inevitably move on to natural-born U.S. citizens as well. If this does not stop, that is where it will go. And it won't be because these people are, heinous criminals or whatever, even though that is what the Trump administration will keep saying over and over again. It will be because all of these people will be considered political dissidents, a danger, a threat to American national security. A lot of people look at the aftermath of Nazi Germany's violence and they go, oh, well, you can't compare this to the Holocaust. Like, what are you talking about? Not realizing that the denaturalization process was legal in Nazi Germany, okay? The remigration process and the removal of people's citizenship was a part of this. And the messaging was exactly the fucking same. Trump's budget just passed the Senate, braced for a massive increase in ICE raids. The budget gives $175 million to immigration enforcement. The orders of magnitude are going to be multiplied, immigration experts say. Mass immigration enforcers have swept through American cities in the months since President Donald Trump took office, using flashbangs during restaurant sweeps, slamming people's heads into the ground, violently arresting gardeners on video. Oh, did I say million? Sorry, 175 billion with a B. Apologies. 175 billion with a B. 10 charts to explain Trump's big, beautiful bill. This is the distance in each direction from Alligator Alcatraz to a hospital capable of doing anything beyond stitches and a Tylenol. Holy how is that even possible? Oh, it's like right here, smack dab in the middle. So it's either 155 kilometers or 50 kilometers to Hialeah. This is going to be a death camp, okay? This is going to be an immigrant detention center that will be that will be remembered as like the American Auschwitz, I think. It's basically tents in the middle of a Florida summer. Benny Johnson is flexing like it's a fantastic thing. I don't think anybody realizes how impressive Alligator Alcatraz is. The state of Florida built this 3,000-bed federal prison in 8 days. The director tells me it could have been done in 72 hours were it not for some regulatory holdups. Now all the state needs is DOJ approval to deputize the National Guard as deportation judges, and this will become the most efficient deportation center in American history. One hurricane, and they're all dead if they don't get eaten by the alligators. Okay? You understand that, right? The president says he's looking into spending federal money in part to put sharks in the San Francisco Bay. What? Oh, it's all aesthetics for these losers. Anyway, let's get back to the CNN reporting.
Then, even Kamala Harris did as well. Phasing out green energy tax credits, money for the Pentagon, border security, detentions, and deportations. A lot of money there. And it also lifts the debt ceiling. Can we just talk a little bit about, as we look at all of the components to this, the no's weren't that many no's, considering the concerns that we heard from a lot of Republican senators about a lot of what's in this when it comes to the Medicaid reform or cuts, when it comes to the fact that the CBO says it adds like $3 trillion to the deficit. But at the end of the day, unless somebody changes their vote before it's finally gavelled, it was just, as you said, Rand Paul and Tom Tillis, who went out with a blaze of glory. He was so upset about this. He said, I'm not going to run for re-election.
Yeah, and Dana, I just want to interrupt to say they have gavelled this vote now. It happened very quickly, but I want to just point out, as you were saying, you have these 3 Republicans who voted against this bill, and one of them voting against it for very different reasons, right, than the other 2. Senator Tom Tillis, Senator Susan Collins, they had concerns about those Medicaid cuts. And we should note that in the very end of this bill, the negotiations led to a place where Susan Collins nearly doubled that rural hospital fund that she had been fighting for. Still, it was not enough to win her vote. Meanwhile, Senator Rand Paul voted against this bill because there was too much spending, he argued, and the fact that it increased the country's borrowing limit. That was something he did not want to include in this legislation. And he was very clear with leadership from the jump that that was going to be a red line for him. Obviously, they decided that they didn't need his vote, that they could get votes elsewhere. But that is why those 3 members voted against this legislation. We do expect that Senator Susan Collins will issue a more formal statement explaining her vote anytime. We should also note she is now, of those 3, the only Republican that we know of who is seeking re-election in the state of Maine. That obviously could have been Tom Tillis as well, but he announced on Sunday that he was not going to seek re-election after he faced massive backlash from the president when he voted against advancing this piece of legislation.
Really, really interesting. Lauren, thank you so much for being there. Thank you for making clear that this has officially passed. We did miss that quiet gavel by the vice president, who is the president of the Senate, who made sure that it passed by 1 vote, thanks to his tie-breaking vote. Let us know if you see and hear anything that is noteworthy as we learn what else happened on the floor. And my panel is back. Jeff Zeleny, I interrupted you as we got the news. The big picture here about the Trump agenda.
Look, it's an extraordinary piece of legislation, some 980 pages in the Senate. We should point out this is not done yet. However, it is getting to that point. There is momentum behind this bill now. President Trump obviously wants it. So House conservatives now have a decision to make. Are they going to be the fiscal hawks that they've long talked about, or are they going to swallow hard and vote for this bill? My guess is that by the end of the week, there is a bill. Is it going to be a straight line to that point? No, it is not. But we cannot really underestimate how sweeping this legislation is. It reminds me.
Once again, Trump is going after American citizens next. It's not going to stay with just non-citizens, okay? Here
I'd like to say, a little controversial, but I couldn't care less. We have a lot of bad criminals that came into this country, and they came in stupidly. It was an unforced error. It was an incompetent president that allowed it to happen. It was an auto pen maybe that allowed it to happen, and it did happen. But we also have a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time people that whack people over the head with a baseball bat from behind when they're not looking and kill them, people that knife you when you're walking down the street. They're not new to our country. They're old to our country. Many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them the hell out of here, too. You want to know the truth. So maybe that'll be the next.
I need you to understand something, okay? Once this is implemented, it's over, okay? Like, every single step being taken in this direction is not because there is a real need or a necessity for this kind of step being taken. It's for a larger project, okay? And the larger project is identical to what the Nazis did, okay? The larger project is identical to what the Nazis did. Eventually, taking away the citizenship status and making American citizens stateless, okay? Obviously, you start off by claiming you're going after criminals. And a lot of Americans have no interest in thinking about this and assuming that this is like an unreasonable step. They will go along with it. They will say, oh, yeah, well, what? You want rapists to stay in the country? F them. Not realizing that once you can denaturalize American nationals, American citizens, it will not stay with criminals. This is also, obviously ridiculous to do to American criminals to begin with, but it is a logical conclusion to reactionary ideology, because if you think the only solution to crime is more and more severe deterrence measures, more and more severe penalties, then yeah, of course you're going to take away people's citizenship. What do you mean? You should kill them, right? Like, that's the whole point. Brother, you're projecting, bro. Is this manipulation? Do you not hear what his words are? You are literally listening, instead of listening to my warnings, you are looking at this unprecedented and unconstitutional move, and you're saying exactly what I'm saying. Well, people will say in defense of this. Why would you ever believe what Trump has said? He said that they were going to target rapist, murderer, drug dealer criminals, and they haven't done that, because all of the rapist, drug dealer, murderer criminals have already been targeted in every single administration prior to the Trump administration. They're already in the prison system, which is why they're going after regular ass people at the job sites, okay? People that have the proper authorization to be on U.S. soil, but their immigration status is constantly kept in a state of limbo. What happened there? Do you think it's drug dealer, rapist, murderers that are working at the car wash, at the local car wash? Is that what you think is going on? No. So Trump actually lied about that, I guess. And in the process, the administration is going after people who already have legal status to be in the country too. What is your answer to this? There's a literal DOJ memo that says that they are going to denaturalize anchor babies based on anti-Semitism or support for foreign terror groups. It seems a little pointed. Wait, what? President Trump issued Executive Order 14188, additional measures to combat anti-Semitism, which established a policy of the United States to contact. Wait, what? The Department of Justice may institute civil proceedings to revoke a person's United States citizenship if an individual either illegally procured naturalization or procured naturalization by concealment of material fact. No, that's just that's for people who became naturalized U.S. citizens. The benefits of civil denaturalization include the government's ability to revoke the citizenship of individuals who engage in the commission of war crimes, extrajudicial killings, or other serious human rights abuses, to remove naturalized criminals, gang members, or indeed any individuals convicted of crimes who pose an ongoing threat to the United States, and to prevent convicted terrorists from returning to U.S. soil, traveling internationally on a U.S. passport. At a fundamental level, it also supports the overall integrity of the naturalization program by ensuring that those who unlawfully procured citizenship, including those who obtained it through fraud or concealment of material information, do not benefit. They've done this never at this rate. They'll always like try to find some like random nonsensical reason to be like, oh, you lied and didn't provide all materially important pieces of information in your naturalization process. They've done this in the past as well. I've pointed to them in the past. The Civil Division shall prioritize and maximally pursue denaturalization proceedings in all cases permitted by law and supported by evidence. cases against individuals who pose a potential danger to national security, including those with nexus to terrorism, espionage, or unlawful export from the United States of sensitive goods, technology, or information. Case against individuals who engage in torture. What to know about DOJ revoking citizenship of naturalized Americans. Do you ever get sad about how your peers don't feel the urgency you and your community feels about this? I get more sad about the fact that many Americans are sleepwalking as we are moving in the direction of full tilt fascism.
Next job that we'll work on together. But I think getting them out, we forget about them. We had some bad accidents in New York, and they're not accidents. I like to say, little
of something as big as the
I'm not a naturalized citizen. I'm a natural born U.S. citizen.
Care Act that we all covered 15 years ago now. And the political consequences could also be similar. I've spent some time out in the country talking to voters and rural hospital providers and others, and they are really worried still about these Medicaid cuts. And here's just one reason why. It sort of sounds arcane, but someone with Medicaid now who relies on it to take care of a child with disabilities has to now apply, if this passes, twice in a year for eligibility, as opposed to just once. One mother I talked to said she waited on the phone 3 months to get her daughter certified. Not on the phone for that long, but she was on the phone, and it took 3 months to get her certified. So the question is, can these states administer what Congress is about to pass on to them? So the Senate right now is going to basically jam this down the House's throat. We've seen that many times before. But after that, red states and blue states are about to get a huge piece of legislation that they're going to have to deal with. And there are many Republican governors as well who are very concerned about how this will happen.
So let's just stay on the Medicaid portion of this, because when it comes to the policy, but also the politics, as you just described, it's perhaps the most potent part of this very, very, very big bill. Let's listen to what the president himself said when asked about his promise that it's, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse only.
Medicaid is in big trouble with the Democrats.
So you can promise anyone who loses their health care coverage that is because of...
With the Democrats, you just cooked Medicaid. You literally just cooked Medicaid. You said you were never going to cut Medicaid, and you lied. We all knew that he was lying about this anyway.
Waste, fraud, and abuse.
Only waste, fraud, and abuse, which is what everybody wants.
And Olivia, the Congressional Budget Office, which I know some conservatives dismiss it, but it is the best.
It's crazy, yeah. The Congressional Budget Office
thing we've got in terms of a real look at the nuts and bolts of what these pieces of legislation will do. That's true for Democratic Congresses and presidents and Republicans. They say that this bill, 11.8 million people will lose health insurance by 2034. And that is because when we say health insurance, those are the people who get their health insurance through Medicaid.
Yep. And this issue has been so politically charged from the beginning.
Numbers larger than that. I think it's 17 million.
Trump and other Republicans can definitely use a wide description of what they consider under the umbrella of waste, fraud, and abuse. But you heard centrists complaining about it. They think, okay, if we do work requirements, if we do a few of these other changes in what they call guardrails, we can argue back home that this will be okay. But there is definitely some concern, and it's growing. You're seeing the Democratic ads that are building and attacking Republicans who even voted to just get out of the House, get it out of the Senate. And this will be what we're seeing playing out in the midterms as one of the biggest issues that Democrats campaign on. We will see if Republicans, some of the centrists, David Valadao and others, vote to back it in the House now that they're seeing what they complain is steeper cuts to it in the Senate version. Speaker Johnson barely got it through by just one vote some weeks ago with Republicans by pulling together the two different factions.
But the pressure is quite different when it's just the bill and then you're in between the bill and what the president wants more than anything legislatively becoming law.
Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. All right, so you are looking live at President Donald Trump right there. It might not appear as such on the map, but he's calling this place in South Florida the ICE detention facility Alligator Alcatraz. He is down there
It's not alligator Alcatraz. It's alligator Auschwitz.
To talk about that detention facility amidst quite a bit of controversy, but
can you explain why Democrats passed this shit on foreign? Democrats didn't pass it. It passed in the Senate with all Republican support. It initially in the House, did it get any Democrat support in the House? I think like maybe a couple, but this is in the Senate. It did not need Democrat votes to pass in the Senate. It just needed a majority.
But while he addresses the media at this roundtable, he also spoke about current breaking news, and that is the fact that the Senate passed his so-called big, beautiful bill. Here's what he had to say.
I just heard that about the Senate, and the bill just passed, and it tells you there's something for everyone. I mean, it's a great bill. There is something for everyone, and I think it's going to go very nicely in the House. Actually, I think it will be easier in the House than it was in the Senate.
And just to be clear, on the Medicaid cuts, you've promised not to cut Medicaid, said this is all just targeting waste, fraud, and abuse. Are you saying that the estimated 11.8 million people who could lose their health coverage, that is all waste, fraud, and abuse?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's going to be a very much smaller number than that, and that number will be waste, fraud, and abuse. And if you look, they took a much more liberal stance on the
51-50, 3 Republicans voted no. Vance was the deciding vote. I have such a big headache. I have to grab a pill real quick.
Medicaid situation than they could have. They had a tough stance and a weak stance. They took not a very strong stance on that to start off, and it's waste, fraud, and abuse, and everybody wants that covered.
What number is that? What analysis are you seeing?
I'm not seeing a number, but I know it's much less than the number you gave, and we really were very, very cognizant of three things. Social Security, we're going to take care of it beautifully. Medicare and Medicaid, and we are going to save it, whereas the Democrats are going to, you won't have it. They will destroy Medicare and Medicaid, and they have to because their numbers don't work. So it's not going to happen. They're the ones that have destroyed Medicare. They have made it so bad already, they're going to make it a lot worse, but now we'll be in charge, so we're going to have no problem with Medicaid or Medicare or Social Security. Thank you. Yeah.
Claire Galt with Wink News in Fort Myers. What is your direction to ICE when it comes to arresting farm workers here illegally, other workers in industries that are pretty critical to Florida's economy?
Yeah. Well, we're very much cognizant of that. And as you know, I won the farmers by 92%, and I'm not going to be abandoning my farmers. We were strong on the borders, but we're also strong for the farmers and for others in the hotel industry, et cetera. You know, we have
in the House vote, all Dems voted against, two Republicans voted against, one rep voted present, 2 reps didn't vote. Notably, one of those 2 is the guy who fell asleep on the House floor and missed the vote. When he says he's going to help out the farmers, he's also lying once again, because mass deportation means eviscerating a big chunk of the labor in the farms, a big chunk of the labor in the hospitality business, a big chunk of the labor in the restaurant business, a big chunk of the labor in the construction business. When he says he's going to help out farms, he means the farm owners, but even then, those are the people who are pushing back against these kinds of mass deportation policies. A lot of people don't understand that Texas, back in the day, used to have literal gangs that would hunt down marshals that were trying to implement Operation, I won't say the word. In the aftermath of the Becerra program, which Donald Trump actually kept repeating over and over again as a fantastic thing that he is going to implement here in the United States of America once again, Texas ranchers would literally roam the streets with guns to kill marshals. And the reason why they were doing that is because they did not want their farmhands to be deported. Okay? I don't know if it'll get to that level, but I think the same principle exists. Do you just eat all the slop anytime it's served? Yeah, but that's not now. A farmhand?
And Christy and I, and we'll be working with Ron and a lot of the states. We're going to work something where the farmers can be responsible for some of the people that have been. They have people run for 10, 15 years that they know very well. We're going to put them responsible and we're going to issue a form of a card or document, and the farmer's going to be responsible for these people. They're not going to have citizenship, but they'll be working, they'll be paying taxes. We need to get our farmers the people they need. Otherwise, our farmers aren't going to be able to do their land. You know, was trying.
So exactly how it works currently, except I guess like legalizing slavery, indentured servitude. Yeah, I guess that's you know, I mean that is what's going on currently. The ongoing migrant worker structure that exists in this country is two-tiered. You have one, documented migrant workers that work for very low pay in horrible conditions to begin with, okay? And they work through, they're seasonal workers. They come into the country, they work in the agribusiness, and then they leave, okay? But on top of that, we have already another tier that is even worse than that, which is the undocumented workers that have authorization, are waiting to are waiting for their paperwork to come in, and it never comes in, obviously, or people who are not even waiting for their paperwork to come in. They just came in illegally and have been working in these farms for years and years and years. The reason why they are kept undocumented is exactly, you're not wrong, the Dubai method. Basically, it is identical to the way in which the kafala system works in Gulf countries. You know how we talk about, like, in Gulf countries, these governments will take away people's passports and make them work in these horrible conditions. It's basically the same. Okay. It's a different version of the kafala system in the United States of America, where we refuse to give proper clearance and authorization, or refuse to give full-blown citizenship, full-blown documentation to a lot of these people, so we can actually use and abuse them, and they can be easily discarded through the legal process. Trump himself is, of course, as a major business owner, utilized this structure as well. And that's precisely what's going on here. He's basically saying, we're going to keep some of these slaves in the farms that are undocumented. We're not going to give them citizenship, God forbid. Couldn't do that.
Tried once before, many, many years ago, where there was a very strong guy, and he got everybody out, and every farm almost in the country, but every farm in California, every farm in Iowa, almost all the farms went bankrupt. They had nobody to work, and we don't want to have that situation. So we're going to work it. We're going to put our farmers and others in charge of the people that they have under them. They know the people, and I think it's going to work out really well. We're going to take care of our farmer, but we're going to get the criminals out. Okay?
He's talking about Eisenhower, by the way. He's literally talking about Eisenhower. The very strong guy that he's talking about, he has openly said is tailored off of Eisenhower's Operation Wetback. Okay? That's what this is.